Mara mopenge yinzi.
Continuous and heavy rainfall across South Africa's northern provinces of Mpumalanga and Limpopo has resulted in severe and deadly flooding, causing extensive damage to infrastructure, displacing thousands of families, and claiming at least 19 lives in Mpumalanga alone since November. The South African Weather Service, SAWS, has issued a red level 10 warning for the affected areas, indicating a high risk of further disruptive rainfall. The floods, driven by a slow-moving cut-off low-pressure system anchored over the region, have overwhelmed river systems and damaged vital infrastructure, including roads, bridges, and schools. Preliminary assessments in Mpumalanga indicate the flood-related damage to infrastructure is estimated at approximately 2 billion rand. At least 19 people have died in Mpumalanga province since the rains began in November. Across the broader region, the death toll is over 100 people. Over 1,200 households in Mpumalanga have been affected, with many homes completely destroyed or submerged, particularly in Ankomazi, Chief Albert Luthuli, Mbombela, and Makondo municipalities. Numerous schools have been damaged, leading to the suspension of classes in affected areas. Roads have been washed away, cutting off entire communities from essential services. The famed Kruger National Park, KNP, which spans both affected provinces, has temporarily suspended day visits and evacuated staff and guests from certain camps due to flooded rivers and damaged access routes. Disaster management teams have been activated across Mpumalanga to respond to the crisis. The Department of Cooperative Governance, Human Settlements, and Traditional Affairs, COGHSTA, is working with partners to provide humanitarian aid, including food parcels, temporary shelter materials, and psychosocial support to affected families. The South African National Defence Force, SANDF, has deployed helicopters to assist with rescues, including airlifting stranded residents from rooftops and trees and assisting with temporary restoration of access routes. Humanitarian organizations like the Gift of the Givers are also on the ground, assisting hundreds of distressed households. The situation remains critical as the SAWS continues to warn of additional heavy rainfall over the weekend. Residents are urged to exercise extreme caution, stay indoors if possible, and avoid driving on any roads covered by water. The high water levels in the province's dams and rivers pose a continuous risk of further flooding. Officials are conducting ongoing assessments to determine the full extent of the damage, which is expected to run into millions of rand. The province is preparing a comprehensive report for potential national intervention, as the scale of the disaster exceeds local emergency funding capacity. Meanwhile, over the past 5 days, areas in Limpopo and Mpumalanga have been battered by incessant rain as a storm that first started over Mozambique quickly traveled into the border provinces, causing flooding that has submerged entire villages in murky brown water and damaged roads, bridges, and critical infrastructure. The floods have had devastating consequences for communities that live in areas close to the Mozambican border. At least 2 children have died, and homes have been swept away as communities contend with the unrelenting rains, which are projected to continue well into the weekend. The Greater Giyani municipality is one of these regions where the South African Police Service, SAPS, and the South African National Defence Force have had to rescue community members who were trapped or swept away by the rising waters. A desperate search is currently underway for a 5-year-old boy, Sianda Boloyi, who was reported missing early on Thursday, the 15th of January, in Mbaula village outside Giyani. Authorities are racing against time, braving perilous conditions to locate the boy, who was swept away when he and his mother attempted to flee their home as it was engulfed in water. According to SAPS Limpopo spokesperson Brigadier Hlulani Mashaba, the mother was rescued by the SANDF after being trapped against a tree, but the child could not be located. While it has been reported that the child has died, Mashaba told Daily Maverick that the reports were false and the search was ongoing. Detailing the impact of the flood to Daily Maverick, Aaron Mabunda, from Munghonghoma village in Mopani District Municipality in Guyana, spoke of villages isolated because the floods had turned the roads into rivers and cut off electricity supply. We are seriously under siege. We are trapped. From the day the flood started, we can't leave the village, even just to access necessities, like going to the shop to buy food. Something as small as buying bread. We can't even do that. Even if you want to use a generator to operate lights, your refrigerator, and all these things, we can't even get petrol to do that because the roads to the filling station are closed, Mabunda said.
Very bad. The superstructure has started.
He added that while the village had 2 clinics that were tending to the sick and injured, emergency services could not access his village. Ambulances cannot get to the village or outside the village. Even if someone is about to die, that person cannot be taken hospital because there is no way out.
As you can see,
Mabunda said he was concerned about clinics running out of medication because replenishing supplies would be near impossible. While the government had deployed emergency services to vulnerable communities, his village had not received assistance to date, despite calls for help. Mabunda, who had only just begun arranging a funeral for his mother who died recently, said that he could not bury her with dignity because of the damage the flooding had caused. Today, as we speak, we were supposed to receive the body from the mortuary, but we can't because the mortuary vehicles cannot come into the village. That causes us more pain because we can't even bury our mother, he said. Speaking to Daily Maverick, Jeanette Lasisa, the manager of Holy Family Care Center near Tsani, Limpopo, detailed what the organization, which cares for at least 60 children who have been orphaned or abandoned, had experienced over the past week. The water was coming from everywhere. It was not just the rain, but also from underground, through the bricks and the tiles. The girls' dormitory even got flooded because the water was coming up through the tiles. We had no choice but to evacuate them. Most of the place is flooded. It's still flooded even now, Lasisa said. The care center manager said they had to wait for the rains to stop and the water to clear before the children could be returned to their dormitories. She added that the untarred roads leading from the offices to town were bad on a good day, but the heavy rains had further deteriorated their condition, making it nearly impossible to navigate them. Our cars, a Quantum minibus, have been getting stuck on the road. We could not even fetch staff on Thursday because the roads were so bad. We have been short-staffed. You can imagine how difficult that is when you have to take care of 60 children in these conditions, Lasisa said. The SAPS and SA Weather Service have warned people to steer clear of roads and overflowing rivers. But with food and other resources running low, Lasisa said that the care center's driver had no option but to brave the damaged and dangerous roads on Thursday, to make sure the children at least had something to eat in the morning. The driver took the risk to go to town because we needed bread and cereal for the children in the morning. Thankfully, by the grace of God, he managed to get back safely. It was a risk, but we had to take it, she said. Kruger National Park, South Africa's most famous wildlife reserve, temporarily shut its gates to visitors Thursday, after weeks of torrential rainfall triggered deadly flooding in the country's Limpopo and Mpumalanga provinces. Park officials said the closure was a precautionary measure until conditions improve, as forecasters predict heavy rainfall over the next 48 hours. Earlier in the day, staff members and guests were rescued by helicopter after one of the campsites flooded. The South African Weather Service issued its highest warning level for parts of the northern region, with 100 to 200 millimeters, about 4 to 8 inches, of rain expected over the next 2 days. The warning is quite unprecedented, it said. President Cyril Ramaphosa visited Limpopo province on Thursday, where search and rescue teams had been deployed to help residents left stranded by severe flooding. According to the South African National Defence Force, it has been using helicopters and other aircraft to assist with evacuating stranded people. South Africa's largest national park, Kruger spans some 20,000 square kilometers. 7,722 square miles, about the size of Israel, and borders Mozambique and Zimbabwe. The reserve is home to the so-called Big Five: lion, leopard, rhino, elephant, and buffalo. A park spokesperson said the animals are adaptable and can move to higher ground. Reynold Thakuli said precautionary measures were needed to protect guests. We had to proactively start evacuating certain camps, particularly bush camps and rustic camps, Thakuli told the Associated Press. At this moment, there's no predictions in terms of when will the rain stop, so we are monitoring on a daily basis. The South African National Defence Force, SANDF, has deployed helicopters to rescue families and security personnel trapped by severe flooding in Limpopo, as heavy rainfall continues to devastate parts of the province. Search and rescue teams from the South African Air Force's 17 and 19 squadrons were activated following an emergency request from the Air Force command post, with aircraft dispatched from bases in Pretoria and Hoedspruit. The SANDF said 3 helicopters were deployed to flood-affected areas, where rapidly rising water levels left residents stranded on rooftops, in trees, and on high-lying ground. The operation started on 14th January 2026, from 2300 until 15th January 2026 at 200, during which members risked severe weather conditions to rescue people whose lives were in immediate danger of drowning, the SANDF said. One of the rescue missions involved a family trapped in Mbala village, outside Guyana, after floodwaters from the swollen Olifants River inundated homes. According to the SANDF, community members had already rescued several residents from rooftops and elevated areas, while one family member was saved from a tree along the flooded river. A local chief was also rescued from the roof of his home as floodwaters continued to rise. Rescue crews assisted additional residents trapped in trees and transported those requiring medical attention to Mafutha Hospital near Phalaborwa. Meanwhile, several Pietermaritzburg residents visiting the Kruger National Park were forced to flee the reserve as floodwaters rose rapidly. The SANDF said an Oryx helicopter was also dispatched to the Fafuri port of entry, where Border Management Authority and South African Police Service members were surrounded by floodwaters. The rescue operations come amid extreme weather conditions, with the South African Weather Service issuing a red level 10 impact-based warning for disruptive rainfall across Limpopo and Mpumalanga.
Thank God for
authorities have urged residents in flood-prone areas to remain alert, avoid flooded roads, and heed official warnings as emergency operations continue. Meanwhile, roads swept away, bridges no longer standing, and communities cut off from their economic lifelines and daily routines. This is the image that Limpopo Premier, Fofi Ramathuba, has painted as the province battles continued ravaging downpours. In the midst of the havoc, 9 people lost their lives, with 7 from December and 2 since January 1st. Among those who died was a 5-year-old whose parents could not save him. The wet conditions have been ongoing, but conditions began to worsen on Monday, when the South African Weather Service issued a level 5 warning that several parts of the country should brace for severe weather. Among those provinces on the notice were Gauteng, Free State, Northwest, Limpopo, and Mpumalanga. These conditions would see heavy rains and thunderstorms resulting in flooding, road closures, and low-lying settlements. Residents were warned to be on high alert, stay indoors, and take precautions. In Mpumalanga, teaching and learning in flood-stricken areas had to be suspended, while in Limpopo, government urged flood-struck regions not to open schools if it's not safe. The week saw no improvement, as heavy rains continued to lash through the provinces. According to Ramathuba, other disruptions were witnessed on water and electricity infrastructure, causing consternation amongst our communities. Schools have also been destroyed, while health facilities were crippled. Scores of families are displaced. Further reports on the disruption painted a harrowing picture of national and provincial roads. Ramathuba says in total, at least 439 roads have been critically damaged, adding to the burden of motorists having to commute in and around the province. The Premier says assessment work in vital areas will be done, but the process will not be easy. This is because there are areas which are difficult to access due to the extent of the damage.
Daaroor kry daar's 2000 se vlak. Nou sê dat hulle nog die chick om dis ons mag jy daar inry nie. Do not enter, road closed.